तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
So, this will be lecture number 31 on the ongoing series on mechanical measurements. If you recall, towards the end of the lecture number 30, we are talking about the measurement of heat flux by using a gauge in which the heat transfer and the temperature gradient are in a direction parallel to each other. So, we call it the axial heat conduction gauge, and what I would like to do is to start this lecture with a discussion on the axial heat conduction probe, and I will give example 33 will show the typical case giving the typical dimensions and the what we can expect from such a probe. Subsequently, I will look at again a gauge in which the temperature gradient or the temperature change or temperature profile or temperature field and the heat flux are again parallel, and this is in the case of a thin film heat flux gauge, and example 34 will indicate the kind of performance we can expect from a thin film gauge. Subsequently, we will move on to the measurement of heat transfer coefficient, which is a very useful quantity in thermal engineering, and this is done by using essentially a gauge which is a heat flux gauge basically, but it is interpreted, the results are interpreted in terms of a heat transfer coefficient instead of the heat flux. And then we will move on to, time permitting, the transient method of heat flux measurement using what is called a slug type heat flux probe, and round off the discussion with a thin film heat flux gauge which is used in the transient mode. The slide shows actually the working principle of an axial heat flux gauge schematically. We have if you look at the figure here, I have a circular cross sectioned probe or a cylindrical probe. This is the probe part of it, which is indicated by this portion, and behind that I have some arrangement for cooling the back surface of the probe. So, the back surface of the probe is cooled by a coolant which comes out in the form of a jet and impinges on the back surface and cools this surface, and after cooling the fluid goes out through the tube shown here. So, it comes axially like this, the coolant comes axially like this. For example, coolant can be either air or water. In many cases air is a possibility, and as we will see in a little while from now, the coolant enters here axially through this pipe, impinges in the form of a jet on the backward surface of the probe and leaves from the tube attached to the side. And if you look at the probe itself, probe consists of an inner cylinder with a small gap which is formed by gouging out the material. Okay. So, we have an annulus, in other words, with a small gap. This gap is very large here, but in practice it will be a very narrow gap. The idea is that there should be no physical contact between these two parts, the outer cylindrical annulus cylindrical and the inner cylindrical part, there should be no actual contact. And on the outside I have got a small annular region, and the annular region as well as the inner cylindrical region are part of the same block of material. This is the block which I have got. Okay, a cylindrical block with a small gouged out portion like this, and this is the gauge, and the heat flux is incident here, and there are two thermocouples, one attached very close to the front surface need not be exactly at the front surface, it could be slightly inside. So, we have a blind hole which is drilled through from the back, and the thermocouple, a thermocouple is connected there, are placed at the bottom of the blind hole and intimately connected to the bottom by cementing, and the leads are taken out like this. Similarly, I have a second hole which is drilled, but to a slightly distance away from the front surface. Therefore, there is a gap between this thermocouple and this thermocouple in the axial direction. So, this thermocouple lead is also taken outside, and I am going to measure the delta T across the two thermocouples by connecting it to the differential mode. So, I call this the guard, and this is the main region or main probe, and this is the guard probe. The heat flux is incident here, and what happens in this case is that the heat flux is going to create a temperature gradient along the length, because I am cooling the backward surface. That means that the surface here is at a lower temperature than the temperature to which this is subjected. Therefore, there is a temperature gradient along the length of the probe, and I am going to use the Fourier law of heat conduction to estimate the heat flux from the temperature difference which is measured, and knowing the distance between the two thermocouples, I can do that. But the point now is, what is the principle involved in this guard and the main probe? That is what I am going to discuss on the board. So, let us look at the board. So, I want to explain the principle of the guard. The idea of the guard is to obtain one dimensional 1D temperature field. So, I want to obtain a one dimensional temperature field in the probe. Suppose I have a piece of material like this, a cylinder, and I subject it to some amount of heat flux at the surface, and this is exposed. Then what will happen is that the heat transfer will take place like this, and some amount of heat transfer will take place like this. Towards the edges, there will be some heat leak in the lateral direction. Even though the heat transfer may be more or less one dimensional in the axial region near the axis of the cylinder, towards the periphery, the temperature distribution is going to be not one dimensional, but there will be some radial component of the heat flux, and therefore, if you plot the temperature profile, I would like to have a temperature profile like this. I want to have a uniform temperature profile, but what you will get if there is heat loss in the lateral direction is something like this. So, some temperature variation like this I will get. That means there is heat loss from the two sides. So, what is the consequence of this? Suppose I assume that all the heat which is entering at the front surface is going axially, then I know the heat flux, the total heat transferred I can know simply by the fact Q into A, that is the heat which is entering the surface. Now, if this amount of heat is transferred axially, then I can equate it to the amount of heat transferred in the cylinder by conduction, if the temperature profile forms this particular pattern, uniform across the probe, uniform temperature distribution. Across the probe. However, this will not satisfy that requirement, because QA is not equal to the amount of heat transferred axially, because there is a small amount of leak in the lateral direction. So, how do we take care of this? That is the principle of the guard. So, let me redraw the situation. So, I have a cylinder and I have an annulus which is surrounding it. So, the annulus is like this. I am showing the cross section. I have cut the thing. This is the axis of the probe. So, now the heat flux is incident here and also on the annular region. Q is incident both on the central region, central cylindrical portion as well as the annular region, and we have a very small gap For example, this may be 25 millimeter diameter typically. This may be the outer diameter, there may be about 40 millimeters. The gap here between the two half to 1 millimeter. So, very narrow gap between the inner cylinder and the outer guard. So, if the heat is impinging on the front surface both of the cylinder as well as the guard. So, this is the guard. It will set up a temperature field in the guard as well as the cylinder, and if these two are made of the same material, more or less similar temperature profiles will prevail in the two of them. Okay. Therefore, across the gap, so if you were to connect a thermocouple pair across the gap, so if I measure the delta T is very small, at any axial location, because the guard probe as well as the main probe both are subject to the same heat flux at the front, both are of the same material, they have similar temperature profiles within them, even though the guard may have a slight two dimensional temperature field because of the heat loss at the outer periphery. Because the two are surrounding each other, the guard will have a temperature profile which is more or less similar to the temperature profile within the main probe, and therefore, there is no heat transfer. If delta T is small, there is no heat transfer in the lateral direction, in the radial direction. So, what we notice is that by surrounding the main gauge by a guard gauge which is of the same material, and we are subjecting both of them at the front surface to the same heat flux, we are having a small temperature difference or negligible temperature difference between the periphery of the main probe and the inner wall of the guard probe. Therefore, heat transfer in the lateral direction is completely suppressed. That means that the main probe we have 1D temperature field. This is the consequence of the guard probe. So, let us look at go back to the axial heat flux gauge, schematically I have shown here. So, what I am going to do is I am going to measure the temperature difference between two locations, one close to the front surface of the probe, second one at a distance away from the front. Therefore, there is a small spacing between the two thermocouples. These two thermocouples are going to record two different temperatures, and therefore, there is a temperature difference across them. This is what I am going to measure. So, the gauge output is nothing but the thermocouple reading, or the differential thermocouple reading is the gauge output. Another point which I would like to mention here is that if we control the rate of coolant which is being sent into the back of the probe, that is, if I control the amount of coolant which is being sent here by having a valve which is controlled by the temperature indicated by the, let us say, the first thermocouple. This first thermocouple is very close to the surface, and therefore, it is an indication of the surface temperature. Suppose I want to maintain the surface temperature of the probe at a value below that at which the probe is going to get damaged, or at the limiting value of the temperature to which the probe can be subject to, then what I have to do is I have to take the temperature of the first thermocouple as the control voltage, and that can be used to control the coolant level such that the temperature is maintained at a constant value less than the maximum possible value, which is allowed value. Therefore, this probe does two things. One, it can maintain the front surface of the probe at a temperature which is desired, and secondly, it also gives me a temperature difference which can be used for measuring the heat flux. So, two things can be done. One is maintaining the front surface of the probe at a temperature, desired temperature. Secondly, measure the heat flux at the same time, that is by controlling the coolant flow rate, assuming that the coolant is always available at the same inlet temperature. In some design, the heat transfer rate at the back for this size may not be adequate, in which case we can expand or extend this by using a cone at the back. That is only a small change in the probe profile, but that is not going to affect the performance of the front portion, which is going to be always a uniform cylinder surrounded by a guard cylinder. So, let us look at a typical case and work out the kind of numbers we are going to get. So, this will be example 33. So, I will assume that you have a 25 millimeter diameter main gauge, and of course, for the calculation purpose the guard does not come into the picture. The guard is not going to come into the picture. The heat flux is incident here Q, and I am measuring the temperature axially at two locations. Let us say this is T1, this is T2, the temperature difference is delta T is T1 minus T2, because I am cooling, this end is cooled. And we are going to wait till the steady state is reached. That means that the temperatures are going to initially change and then finally it will settle down, so that the delta T will show a constant output depending on the value of Q. Suppose I use a material of thermal conductivity 45 watts per meter degree Celsius. I am just choosing a material which has got a value of 45. Actually, I can choose different materials depending on the maximum temperature you will subject the gauge to, and secondly, the kind of temperature difference you would like to have. If the thermal conductivity is large, the temperature gradient will be small, and vice versa for a given value of Q. Therefore, depending on the heat flux which you want to measure, depending on the maximum temperature to which the gauge can be subjected, we can use different materials, and I have just chosen a material with 45 watts per meter degree Celsius as the thermal conductivity of this. Suppose the distance between these two, which we call as S is equal to 10 millimeters. That is the distance between the two thermocouples which are kept inside the material. So, a typical case would be I have got a Q of 100,000 watts per square meter. This works out to about 10 watts per centimeter squared, because 10,000 watts per square meter is equal to 1 watts per centimeter squared. So, I am talking about a fairly high value for the heat transfer rate, or the heat flux. So, I can find out what is the delta T I am going to get by using the simple formula Q is equal to K delta T by S. The diameter of the probe does not come into the picture, because we are having the heat flux and we are not measuring the actual heat transfer, for which of course you would require the diameter of the probe. From this I can obtain delta T as Q S by K, a very simple formula. It is directly proportional to Q, therefore, it is a linear gauge. So, Q S by K, Q is nothing but 10 to the power of 5 multiplied by 10 millimeter is 0.01 meter divided by 45, and this gives you a temperature of 22.2 degrees. Of course, 22.2 degrees is quite a good measurable value. If you remember what we said earlier, if we are using the K type thermocouple or T type thermocouple, both of them have similar Seebeck coefficients. This 22 multiplied by about 40 microvolts, 22.2 degrees, 20 into 40, 600 microvolts, about 0.6 millivolts will be the output. So, it is quite a measurable value. And now, let us look at the amount of heat which is transferred or heat to be removed this is nothing but Q into A, Q into pi d squared by 4, and this will be 10 to the power of 5 into 0.025 whole squared divided by 4, so many watts, and this works out to be about 49.1 watts, roughly let us say 50 watts to be removed. And this can be easily removed by air with a back area of about 75 millimeters, circle of 75 millimeters diameter. Therefore, the probe itself, if you remember, is 25, it can be expanded to 75 by using a cone at the back, and if one wants, the cone can be made of a different material whose thermal conductivity may be even higher, one can do that, and the heat can be removed from the back easily by using air as the coolant. So, this such a heat flux gauge is actually used in practice in measuring the heat flux which may be incident on the walls of a boiler. For example, in the boiler plant, the heat flux on the walls are covered with tubes which are called water walls. Water is flowing through those tubes, and all you have to do is to make a small hole in the side of the boiler wall and introduce this probe such that the probe is just in the same plane, the front surface of the probe is in the same plane as the water wall tubes, so that you can measure the heat transfer rate at the wall, and this will be the heat transfer rate at the surface of the water wall if we maintain the temperature of the front surface at a value close to that of the water wall tubes. And if you remember, I mentioned earlier that by controlling the coolant rate, I can actually maintain the front surface at the desired temperature, and that is in fact the reason why I mentioned that. So, you can maintain the surface temperature at the value which is close to the value of the temperature of the metal wall of the tubes which are going to be on the water wall, and therefore, you are measuring the heat flux under the same circumstances as the water wall tubes are going to be subjected to. Therefore, it is a very interesting application where we can measure the heat transfer by axial conduction probe with the temperature of the surface held at about the same value as the surfaces of the tubes. So, the next one we are going to look at is a thin film heat flux sensor. and the principle of operation is exactly similar to what we had in the case of the axial conduction probe. The only thing is I am going to have a thin thermal barrier, So, thin film because I am using a barrier of very small thickness, but of known thermal conductivity. For example, the normal thickness of the barrier will be around 0.25 millimeters, and you see that we are going to have two temperature sensors, one on the front surface of the film and the other at the back surface of the film, and I am going to simply measure the temperature drop or temperature difference across the barrier. When the heat flux is incident like what is shown here, a temperature field will be developed across the thickness of the sensor, and this temperature difference is measured by a sensor on the top and this sensor at the bottom. Actually, what I am going to do is I am going to use, this is thin film of 0.25 millimeters. The length and width of this may be 25 millimeters each. So, the film is very small, 25 millimeters by 25 millimeters, thickness 0.25 plus the thickness of the two sensors which are attached to it, and the sensors are also made by thin film technology by having a thin film deposited of the two thermoelectric materials which are going to form the junctions. And in fact, what is normally done is we have about 40 or so junctions formed on the top and the bottom, and they are interconnected in the differential temperature mode, which is familiar to us from our discussion on thermometry, so that the delta T is actually the value which is magnified by the number of junctions which are formed. If there are 40 junctions, the temperature indicated here is 40 times the temperature across a single thermocouple pair. So, we have 40 junctions, this will be 40 times the signal, and the idea is that we are going to get a good output with a small temperature difference which may be developed across the film. And the barrier material usually is made of Kapton. This is a registered trademark of the material, which actually is polyimide, it is the chemical name for it, and it has got a thermal conductivity of about 0.2 watts per meter degree Celsius. So, let us look at the typical behavior of this heat flux sensor by working it out on the board. So, I am going to look at the typical thin film gauge. Thin film sensor. Let me just show how the film sensor is made. We have about 25 millimeter by 25 millimeter film of Kapton, and I am going to deposit the thermocouple material in the form of thin film like this. This is a positive, this is negative material, and the junction is formed here. This is the junction, and in fact I will have a number of them. So, so many number, and on the other side also similarly there will be so many junctions, and the negative of this to the positive of that, and so on and so forth. So, you have typically 40 junctions. And the thickness I have already mentioned, it is about 0.25 millimeters, and the heat flux is incident along this. Let us take a typical case and find out what is going to happen. The output of the gauge this will be actually example 34. Numerical example 34. Output of the gauge is given to be V equal to 0.1 millivolts at the maximum Q. To which it can be subjected. How do we determine the maximum temperature, maximum Q? It is determined by the maximum temperature to which the material can be subjected. So, if you increase the temperature beyond that, the sensor itself can get damaged. And we will go back to the previous note. What we do is, if you have the substrate or the surface which is subjected to the heat flux, I am going to mount it by sticking onto it. This is the sensor. It is attached by using an adhesive. Actually, it is a very thin, as thin as a paper, sheet of paper, and it comes with an adhesive layer. So, all you do is remove the backing and then stick it on the surface on which the heat flux is going to be subjected, and you just stick it onto it and you will be able to use it. The two leads will have to be connected to a simple voltmeter, in this case of course with microvolt or millivolt capability, so that you can measure the temperature directly. So, very simple arrangement. It does not require any power, because thermocouple will provide an output by itself by thermoelectric effect. So, if I look at the typical case, the thickness of the gauge, and you can see now the number of junctions is 40. Therefore, output per junction is 0.1 divided by 40 millivolt. I am sorry, this is 0.1 volt, not millivolt. So, this will be 0.1 volt at the maximum Q. Number of junctions is 40, therefore, output per junction is 0.1 by 40 volts, or this will be 0.0025 volt per junction. Or is it 0.025? Per junction, the voltage developed is 0.025 volt per junction. If you assume that the output from a single junction pair is some 40 microvolts per degree Celsius, if you assume that, the output given here, output will correspond to about 62.5 degrees centigrade. So, that is the output from the junction, from a single junction. In fact, this is the delta T which is developed by the sensor. This is the delta T, and therefore, now I can find out what is the heat flux by using the simple Fourier law of heat conduction, K delta T by the thickness of the film delta. K is 0.2, delta T is 62.5, and delta is now 0.25 millimeters. This will be so many watts per square meter, and it comes to 50,000 watts per square meter. So, a typical thin film gauge which is subjected to a heat flux of 50,000 watts per square meter will develop about 0.1 volt or 100 millivolts of output. So, Q equal to this corresponds to 100 millivolt output, which is very easy to measure. So, just to summarize what we have found, you are going to use a very thin film of material of known thermal conductivity, in this case Kapton, which is a plastic material whose thermal conductivity is 0.2 watts per meter degree Celsius, varies very little in the operating range of temperatures. And the two sides of the film, we have several junctions formed by thin film technology of dissimilar materials like copper and Constantan, or some other material also is possible, and the delta T is amplified, or the signal is amplified by having a large number of junctions, so that the output from a thin film sensor is a sizable value which can be measured using a simple millivolt meter. And you can see that about 50,000 watts per square meter will correspond to the maximum of 100 millivolts, which is the output of the instrument. So, this is a case where the heat transfer or the heat flux and the delta T are in the same direction, similar to what we had in the case of the axial probe. So, having looked at some of these simple instruments, let us look at now the measurement of heat transfer coefficient. So, a film coefficient transducer is an instrument which can be used for measuring the heat transfer coefficient, and before I describe in detail, let me just go back and talk about what is involved in this. We will come back to the slide in a little while from now. So, if I want to measure the heat transfer coefficient, which is a very important quantity in studies involving heat transfer, especially convective heat transfer. Suppose I have a surface and we have an ambient fluid which may be moving. If the surface is at a temperature Ts and the temperature of the ambient is, let us say, Ta, and if I measure the heat flux at the surface, if Ta is less than Ts, it will be in this direction. Q is nothing but heat transfer per unit area, heat transfer per unit area. The fundamental equation is called the Newton's law of cooling. It says that Q will be equal to some quantity called the heat transfer coefficient H multiplied by Ts minus Ta. So, immediately you see that H is a derived quantity. It requires the measurement of Q, the heat transfer per unit area, and it requires the temperatures Ts and Ta to be measured. So, I need to measure three quantities, Q, Ts and Ta, or Ts minus Ta can be directly measured, the temperature difference between the surface and the ambient. Then I can obtain H as the ratio of Q by Ts minus Ta. Therefore, if I am going to use a probe to measure the heat transfer coefficient, I must make arrangement for measuring the heat flux Q. I must have an arrangement to measure the temperature of Ts. I also should have an arrangement for measuring the ambient fluid temperature. If I do that, then I will be able to estimate the heat transfer coefficient. The heat transfer coefficient is also sometimes called the film coefficient. The reason why we call it the film coefficient is that it is as though there is a thin film of the fluid which is next to the surface, which is getting cooled or heated, in which there is conduction heat transfer. Okay. So, the idea is that even though the fluid is moving at a distance far away from the plate, at the plate surface itself it is going to be at the same, it is going to be at rest, and therefore, we are assuming that there is a small film, it is also there is a small film of the medium which is present right next to the surface, in which conduction is the mode of heat transfer. Therefore, we call it the film coefficient. So, this is just a description of what is happening at the surface. So, to recapitulate, all I have to do is to measure the Q, measure the Ts, measure the Ta, and how am I going to do that? That is going to be shown in the slide. Film coefficient transducer. So, the principle of the film coefficient transducer is the following. What I am going to do is, I am going to have a plug of material which is shown here. This is a cylindrical thing, this is the axis of the cylinder. I have got a plug material which is surrounded by a heater, there is a heater here, so that I can heat the sensing plug to a temperature desired value, and it can be measured using a thermocouple which is inserted into the sensing plug. So, sensing plug surrounded by a sensing plug heater which is heated by electrical power supplied through the leads here, and it can be maintained at a constant temperature. Okay. And to guarantee that the heat transfer, all the heat which is supplied to the plug is only leaving from the front, what I have to do is, I have to surround the sensing plug by a guard cup which is independently heated, and of course, there is a very small gap between the sensing plug and the, that means that there is no physical contact between the guard cup and the sensing plug, and if I heat the sensing plug, the guard cup independently and maintain the same temperature for the guard plug as I maintain the sensing plug at, that means that the temperature difference between this and this is 0. That means, I measure the guard cup heater temperature and the sensing plug heater temperature, and I maintain them at the same value by controlling the heater input such that the delta T is 0. Then you can see that all the heat I am inputting into the sensing plug must be leaving from the top, because there is no heat transfer from here to here, because these are the same temperature. These are the same temperature. So, if these are at the same temperature, there is no heat transfer from the sensing plug to the guard cup. The guard cup is surrounding the sensing plug in all the directions excepting the top. So, the only available directions for heat transfer from the sensing plug from the top, and this will of course go to the fluid which is flowing over the sensing plug. So, I am measuring the temperature of the sensing plug. I am also measuring the heat input into the sensing plug by electrical heating. Therefore, the capital Q, the amount of heat transfer to the plug is measured, and we can immediately work out the formula for the heat transfer. So, suppose we sensor plug area, that is frontal area, is equal to A, then the electrical power input is Q, is nothing but E squared by R or E times I, then Q is nothing but this Q by A, Q by A, and I am measuring the temperature of the sensor plug, and I am also measuring the temperature of the ambient. Therefore, H will be nothing but Q by A into T s minus T A. Unlike the heat flux measurement, the H measurement is not direct, it is done by measuring Q by A separately, by Q separately by finding out what is the amount of heat which is supplied in the form of electrical energy. Then area is calculated by measuring the frontal area of the sensor plug. T s, T a are measured, therefore, 4 measurements are involved in this. One is this, the 2 temperatures are measured and this is identified as the heat transfer coefficient. It is a very useful instrument. In this case, I have the sensor plug surface as a planar area. So, this is a planar area. And the sensor itself can be mounted on the surface and it could be placed such that it is just plain, just if the rest of the surface is there, you can make sure that you can place your sensor here. That is the surface and this is the sensor. A second arrangement which is sometimes useful is again for the measurement of heat transfer coefficient. I use the heater in the form of a cylindrical tube. Anyway, before we come to this case, you notice here that the heat transfer coefficient is measured by actually allowing heat transfer to take place from the sensing plug to the ambient. So, sensing plug is losing heat to the ambient. In this case, the fluid is cold and the surface is hot. Normally, we assume that in the case of convective heat transfer, the heat transfer coefficient, if the surface is cold compared to the hot fluid, will also be the same as the heat transfer coefficient which you obtain by keeping the sensing plug at a temperature higher than the ambient. So, whether the heat transfer take place from the sensing plug to the ambient or from the ambient to the sensing plug, the same heat transfer coefficient will be obtained. And the advantage of using a film coefficient transducer which is hot heated is that you are doing the experiment with a cold stream of air or cold stream of fluid. So, you are not heating all the fluid, the bulk of the fluid is not heated, it is only a small amount of heat which is sent from the sensor to the fluid. Continuing in the same way, we can also use the sensor in the form of a cylindrical plug. So, the schematic of the arrangement is shown here. We have a pipe which is shown by this lines here, diameter equal to d, a thin walled pipe, and then what I have done is I have a main heater shown here with length equal to capital L, and there are 2 guard heaters of equal width placed just before and after the main heater. So, you can see that the temperature of the pipe close to the main heater will be Tm, the temperature close to the region where the guard heaters are placed is equal to Tg. What I am going to do is I am going to adjust the power which is given to the 2 guard heaters such that Tm minus Tg equal to 0. That means that there is no temperature difference between the region here and the region here. So, 3 thermocouples are there. The temperature difference between these 2 thermocouples and these 2 must be adjusted to 0 by adjusting the heater power which is supplied to the guard heaters by having some kind of a controller we can have. Okay, the heater power is controlled such that these 2 temperatures are the same value. Now, you realize that all the heat which is supplied to the main heater must leave the surface of the pipe. Okay, all the heat which is being sent here must leave the surface of the heat, surface of the cylinder or the surface of the pipe. Therefore, we know how much Q we are supplying or the heat which we are supplying in the form of electrical energy. We are measuring the temperature Tm. Of course, at the same time we are also going to measure the temperature of the ambient fluid which is flowing over this cylindrical surface, and again the principle is exactly the same as what we had in the earlier case. The Q divided by the pi d multiplied by L. So, we can show it on the board. So, we have this is the pipe, main heater, length is L, diameter is d. So, Q by pi d L is the Q, T of the surface is measured, T ambient is measured, therefore, I can say the heat transfer coefficient is nothing but Q by pi d L divided by T s minus T. The principle is the same as the gauge we had earlier. It was a planar gauge. In this case, I have got a cylindrical gauge, and in fact, let us just look at the cylindrical gauge in a slightly more detail. So, this is the cylindrical gauge, and the fluid may be moving like this and move like this past the gauge, and I am supplying heat as shown here. This is Q. What I am assuming is that the temperature of the pipe surface is T s and the temperature of the ambient fluid is T a. So, this is your pi d and the heater length is L. So, Q by pi d L is the heat flux at the surface of the pipe. So, in practice what may happen is that there may be temperature variation. Instead of in this case what we are doing is we are supplying the heat over the entire periphery, and in other words we are integrating the effect of heat transfer at the surface. So, we will be able to get only the average heat transfer coefficient over the periphery. For example, if it varies with respect to theta, the angle, we will not be able to measure that. So, this will give you only the overall heat transfer or the average heat transfer coefficient over the entire periphery of the pipe. What is a typical application for this? So, let me just show a typical application. Suppose I have a tube carrying, for example, air. I may have a bundle of tubes like what is shown here. This is a tube bundle, and I can, for example, to find out the heat transfer coefficient variation within this tube bundle, this can be a gauge, cylindrical gauge. So, I will be able to, I am not heating the air, this is cold air, I am not heating the air, the cold air stream is coming in, and what I am doing is I am putting in a small amount of heat through the gauge. By putting a small amount of heat through the gauge, I am measuring the temperature of this gauge and the ambient fluid, and knowing how much heat I am supplying, I am getting the value of heat transfer coefficient for this particular location. In another experiment, I can change the position of the gauge here, I can put it here So, by doing that, or if I have enough money, I can have several gauges, one here, one here, one here simultaneously, so that I can measure the heat transfer coefficient at different locations within the tube bundle. This is one application where the heat transfer coefficient will be measured simultaneously at different locations within a bundle. So, with this we will go back to the slides. So, the measurement of heat transfer coefficient using a cylindrical gauge is quite clear now. I am now moving on to the measurement of heat transfer by using transient measurements. So, I will not be able to complete the discussion here, I will just give a brief introduction, so that we know what we are going to talk about, and then in the next class, next lecture, we are going to take up the discussion on that. Detailed discussion will come in the next lecture. Consider, for example, a slug type transducer. What is a slug type transducer? It is simply a piece of material which is shown here. This is a slug. Slug is simply a piece of material, a block of material, which in this case is a cylinder or a slab or a cylindrical slab of some diameter, given diameter, and the thickness delta. What I am doing is, I am exposing this slug of material to the heat flux which is impinging here as is shown here, and I am preventing heat transfer from the slug in any other direction. So, if there is no heat loss from the slug, if I am going to heat it with a constant heat flux, if the specific heat of the material is constant, what will happen is the temperature of this piece of material, if it is thin enough, if the delta is small enough, if the temperature of the slug will uniformly go up throughout the slug at a linear rate. Q times the T, Q times T is the total heat transfer from the outside to the slug, Q into T must be equal to m into C, mass of the slug, into specific heat of the slug, multiplied by the delta T. Delta T is the temperature difference between the temperature at time t and the temperature with which it started. So, let us just look at that. So, what I am looking at is a piece of material, mass equal to C m, C is the specific heat, and I am subjecting it to a constant heat flux Q over the area of the surface, and it is insulated, which is shown by this curve. This is insulated on all the sides. That means, if I expose it to a certain amount of time q t, you see that q into t into a, q into t into a must be equal to m into c into t at time t minus t at 0. Therefore, q is equal to mc, so mc by t into a into t at t minus t. So, this is what is measured. And this is infert. I think we will stop here and continue in the next lecture. Thank you.